here's something to think about. Like with this system that they have in place, with this system of so many people being involved in this, what is obviously a system that gives them extra benefits for becoming citizen spies, citizen snitches, however you want to word that. With this system that they have in place, there's those who might ask, well, isn't it possible that they could just all turn against that? If you had like a large number of them turning against it or whatever. Well, the thing is, all of their conversations are listened to as well. So if you have someone who starts saying things about turning against it, or they want to expose these things, they don't want to do this anymore, they think it's wrong, then those are... I noticed where he came walking out of. He's down there. He comes wandering out from the bushes. Yeah, so they would say, let's see if he gets on this one. If he gets on this one, I'll go back. If he doesn't, what I was saying is, going back to this one. Let's see if he gets on there. I don't think he will. No, it's not getting on because he just crawled out of the side area there. So, with that system in place, there are those who don't know about it, or those who find it hard to believe that such an intricate and extensive system is in place in what some might see as a democracy. But of course this country is far from a democracy. It's a total slave system with communitarianism. So people would ask, well, what if like a bunch of those people who are involved in that just decided, we're going to go against this, we're going to expose it, we're going to speak against it, it's wrong. I don't doubt that there have been people who would do that, but the problem is now, whether you believe this or not, all of their conversations are listened to. So if somebody starts talking about that, they're becoming disillusioned or dissatisfied, and they think doing these things is wrong, and things of that nature, then whoever they're talking to, first of all, would go and rat them out for that, just for the benefits that they would get for being loyal to the state, or what they perceived as that. And then secondly, all of their conversations are listened to as well, just like the people who they're targeting in these harassment campaigns. So with that being said, it may sound like such a simple thing to say, well, why don't they just turn against it? It's wrong, right? Sure, there are people involved in it that probably know it's wrong. But first of all, this system controls all their material benefits, including housing and things like that. So if they go against it, they're going to lose all those benefits that they have. And in some cases, with rent being as high as it is, or just the cost of housing being as high as it is, that's going to be very difficult for those people. Here's our one headlight right there. To be able to cope with that if that is taken away. So this system also, while it doesn't use force or physical violence, it uses materialism against these people, the control of materialism, to exploit human vulnerabilities. And so that's how this system has operated, without really necessarily using violence to keep people in line. And this comes out of a lot of Vladimir Lenin's strategies with utilizing deception. And the whole system with setting up these theatrical skits, which the police do, they've been given specific training in doing that. You can tell because they always react almost in an identical manner when they're doing those things. And they're told to do that cackling, giggling, laughing, just first of all making themselves look like ridiculous, childish idiots. But secondly, that's precise in that they've been trained to do that because it's meant to evoke an angry reaction to a person who knows what's going on. And so those types of training methods are directly out of the system utilized by the Stasi in East Germany and in many communist systems. And there's no doubt that they've been given very extensive training in these methods. Those of them who didn't object to it or speak against it, you got to figure, You got to question the character and integrity of those people. And most of them who are in the police now, well, obviously they didn't speak against it because they're still there. You can make the argument. Some might make the argument. Well, they have whatever, the mortgage and the family, and they have to do these things. True to some extent, but how far does that go? How far does that go? Where are the limits to that, right? You've also got a situation where they're in. Most of them are Freemasons, the males. That's a fact. So they instill in these people within the lodges a groupthink mentality. And there's a lot of peer pressure to go along with what everyone is doing and what the system tells them to do. And so that's another way they keep them in line. Whereas these other people who have signed on to become citizen snitches, whatever you want to call it, there's police showing up here. Getting paid to harass and stalk people as usual. Car number 34. Time is indicated on the glasses. So, yeah, those people, even those ones who aren't Freemasons, that's another way they keep those people in line, the people who've signed on, because they use the people who are involved in Freemasonry to go to those people and coax and cajole them to go along with these things that the state wants them to do. In other words, they normalize it, and those people are going to see all those people around them in their neighborhoods doing these things, and whether or not they initially thought it was right to do these things, the peer pressure and that groupthink mentality is going to kick in. And the people who set these things up have studied these, have utilized these very specific psychological control methods extensively. Now, the people doing it now, they're not necessarily as bright as the people who concocted these methods initially. Obviously, those are some very bright and devious minds, and they want to do these things without making it seem like they're... In other words, they don't want to use physical violence to keep people in line. And so they have to use deceit, and in some ways it takes a lot more work on their part to do that, to utilize deceit. It takes a lot more... You have to get people on board, you have to deceive them into taking part in it. You have to also have your people who have been raised as psychopaths, conditioned by their parents to be psychopaths. And that's all through Masonry. That's all through the mind control within Masonry. You have to conform, you have to do what your brothers are doing. And if you do conform, you're going to have those material benefits. So a lot of people, it's hard to resist that, especially at a time like this when housing is so expensive, and a lot of people who don't go along with that system obviously are being harassed and targeted. Now, there's not a whole lot of people, I believe, who are actively speaking out about it, who are legitimate in that regard. Most of the people who they fund to speak out against these things are funded change agents. Change agent being someone who doesn't really believe in the things they're saying. They're actually funded by the state to seize control of a specific narrative, speak a lot of truth in some cases. Some cases they'll have these people speaking a lot of truth. They don't only hire people to act crazy, to discredit. They do that as well. And in some cases they use these drug addicts who they control through their addictions to act crazy, to discredit real people who might speak out against these things. They do that all over the internet. So anything relating to these CSIS harassment campaigns and things of that nature, even in the United States, they're going to just put these drug addicts who they control, or just people who are actors, maybe failed comedians, who can act crazy to discredit people. They're utilized in this system. But so there are those who would ask that question. I think, why, if that system is, why would there not be people who would turn against that system, since they're not really using violence? And the answer is materialism. A number of answers. Firstly, materialism. They would lose all these material benefits that they have been given by this system, which uses materialism to control people. And secondly, they want to be accepted. That's a natural human instinct, to want to be accepted by the group, or by the quote-unquote community. You notice a continual repetition of that word in everything around you today, and that's because the communitarian system also controls language, just like Orwellian newspeak. You'll notice them, again, butchering the English language. That's what they've been doing for the past decade or so, maybe longer. abbreviating words. When someone writes to you or whatever, they're not, they can't even put Y and O in front of the word you. It's just the letter U. Why is that? Is it just because of laziness? I mean, it's typing 2 letters to spell the word accurately. And I'm not saying that to nitpick or, you know what I mean? Like, but I mean, again, the English language is great in its complexity, and they're butchering that and simplifying that, which is exactly what is presented in Orwell's 1984, with the changing and control of language, and that is always done in communist systems. There'll be a repetition of specific words, in this case, community, over and over again. Is this what's best for the community? You know, the YouTube quote-unquote community. Everywhere you go, you're going to hear that word. And then they're going to put out things with subconscious programming. For example, that QR code. They put that in advertising everywhere you go now. And they have these people, these change agents, you'll see a lot of them online, who pretend to actually be for freedom and against these agendas, who are openly showing that QR code to subconsciously program people and to normalize it, because in the coming years, that's what you're going to use to pay for anything. And so if you see someone trying to normalize that, they're clearly part of the system, but so many of these people are just liars who are posing in roles to deceive. Even the ones who speak really eloquently and seem to be on the side of freedom, so many of them aren't. And you just have to be aware of that. And you can tell through the signs and symbols that they put out and through things that they do if you watch enough of the material. So almost all of those people anyone who gets a large platform, who's supposedly speaking out against these agendas and things like that, is pretty much controlled by the system. And it's essentially they're using them. It's just like TV, right? How many years, for years and years, decades, they've used TV to program people, to push certain agendas, but it was more subtle back then. And now the only difference is they're using citizens who they control to go on YouTube and do exactly what they had been doing before with TV. And that's why it's become like network TV. It's just so much of it is fake. When they initially created the site, like everything else, they had, there was a lot of freedom. Anyone could upload pretty much within reason, whatever they wanted to. You could find a lot of really interesting stuff on there. And now they've taken it, just like everything else they do, and slowly, gradually steered it in the direction where they want it to go, where so little truth is available. And by 2030 and going forward, you're not going to find any truth on there at all. And a lot of these other echo chamber sites that pretend to be for free speech, I mean, some of them maybe they legitimately believe they are. They're going to find ways of shutting them down, rest assured. So it's going to be slow and incremental, but they're going to find ways of, they're going to make excuses to shut those sites down, because in some cases, I believe the people who run those sites are just part of the system as well. But they don't want it to look like they're taking away free speech. They don't want people to be too alarmed by that. So it has to be very slow and incremental. And so that's how that goes, based on what I've seen. That's my opinion on that. And I don't trust any of these people who I see online. There's some of them that say really good things. And so then you might say, the question might arise, well, why do you bother posting stuff online if you think everyone on there is fake and an actor? I wouldn't say everyone is, but I'd just say like 95%. Because most regular people don't have the initiative to speak out against these things, right? So, and in some cases they're afraid of the repercussions for doing so, and rightfully so. But you'll say, well, why do you... I'm putting it up because there are some people who are uncompromised, who can see the material, who are not part of this system. And even some of them who are part of the system, but who are being deceived, hopefully they might be able to see some of it and think about what they're doing and maybe reevaluate that. Because, it is still possible to reach some of those people. And then you have these other people who are total psychopaths, these families of the communitarian system who raise their children to be psychopaths. There's no reaching them, unfortunately. Very few of them are going to turn away from this system. And because it rewards them even more than the people who you would just see as the quote-unquote proletariat, those who are just like the average working class. These Masons are going to have a lot more benefits for going along with the system, and also it's just been normalized because their families have done it for generations. So they don't see it as being wrong. They have been brainwashed into this. They've been brainwashed into this mindset that the greater good of the community is all that matters, and morality is pushed by the wayside. It becomes distorted, and over generations, this becomes more and more clear how the system operates. For example, like there's this scene in 1984 in the book where Winston's one of his neighbors, Parsons, I think it is, his name. It's talking about how he's trained his kids to be suspicious of basically everyone around them, and these are kids who are like really young too. And so Winston's I think he's at Parsons' apartment. Now this is, I don't know if it's in the movie, but it's definitely in the book, and the book is much better than any film version they put out about that on the 1984. Anyway, but so Parsons, this guy who's the neighbor, who's basically just a slave to the state, goes along with everything the state tells him to do, and has raised his family to do the same. Even his own children are like suspicious of Winston, and the kid holds like a toy plastic gun up to him. In the book, there's a scene described in the book. And yeah, so they train their children to be suspicious of anyone who they may think even the slightest way deviates from what the state wants them to do. And that also tells you that the generations, the future generations, it's going to be even more extreme, because these people have raised their kids in this way. And so once these generations, like the Gen Xers, start to die off, unfortunately, things are going to get way, way worse. And here I am just arriving on the bus to get off at my stop in Ottawa, heading to work on Wednesday night, and you will see that the Ottawa Police have another ridiculous staged fake street theater skit set up, where they have a community-based agent call in a fake call so that they can show up at my exact location. You will recall that as I exited the hotel on Sunday night, they had these criminal psychopaths purposefully parked in front of the hotel at the time that they knew I would be exiting, to continue their 3 years of harassment, stalking, and attempts to intimidate someone who speaks the truth and exposes their gross corruption. So now, as I'm about to get off the bus, you'll see right at the stop, the exact location where they know I'm going to be getting off, they have 3 police cars set up after what they did on Monday night. And I uploaded a video this morning on my second channel, that same video showing what occurred on the Monday. So again, they're retaliating here and continuing their stalking and harassment. And it's the usual situation where they stage a street theater skit with a community-based agent who has been told to partake in this thing. And you'll even notice that the individual who they're supposedly talking to with this fake setup situation has a child who's screaming. So these people are so sick that they'll literally exploit their own children to partake in these staged activities, and the police taking part in exploiting a child as well, just so they can terrorize, harass, and intimidate me everywhere I go. So these are the types of people that they are, and you'll see them set up directly across the street right as I get off the bus. 3 years of these criminal psychopaths doing these same types of things. See, as I arrive here, police set up right where they know I'm going to be getting off the bus. I uploaded another video today on my second channel, that same video about the cops, so you can see they're showing up to harass and intimidate just as I get off the bus here. Same situation. Notice I'm looking over, it's nothing but theater. So today I uploaded a video, the same video that you saw where they showed up in front of the hotel, and just as I get off the bus, they're setting up a fake street theater skit here. Notice the actor here. Fake incident. They're using a bunch of community-based agents, it looks like. So they get the actor on camera there. Car number 7345, 7364, and what's the other one? 7466. So as you saw, they showed up in front of the hotel as I was leaving on Monday night. And they'll have people around here doing the thing where they film my reaction. This is fake, obviously. And sorry, I dropped that. This is obviously fake. So today on my second channel, that same video, I uploaded it again. So to further harass and intimidate the drug trafficking police that are here. And exploiting children as well. Exploiting children to stage a fake call. So you can see the people there. That's what they do. They exploit children. Everything they do is staged. It's fake. This is right where they knew I would be getting off the bus. So that's okay. You can see the people. You can see the smirk on her face too. Let's see if she's gonna laugh now. So, yeah, laughing, as you can see the female there. It's okay. Got them on camera. This is right where I was getting off the bus. So obviously it's purposeful. They know I uploaded a video today, calling them drug trafficking criminals, which is what they are. And all they do is stage fake skits like that. Yep, look over. Look over. So that's right as I get here, as you can see today. You saw what they did on Monday as I was leaving. Continued harassment, abuse, and all they can do is send a message that way because they're dishonest, dishonorable, drug trafficking criminals. That was set up. They had that obviously set up right where I was getting off at the bus stop there. Obviously fake. Everything these people do involves deceit and setting up fake little skits like that. And you got some of the criminals on camera there tonight. So we'll be uploading that again tomorrow. And there you go. And you can see they planned it to, and again, that person there, exploiting a child too, to do that type of thing. And the police fully involved in that. They knew what it was. They had that community-based agent there to have some fake call so that they could be right here when I got off the bus. So this is where I'm entering right here. Obviously intentional. Obviously that's all they do is deceive, set up fake calls, harass and stalk people. So that'll be online probably tomorrow. Let's see how much other stuff we can get. Yeah, that again, that's obviously their retaliation because I uploaded another video of their harassment. The same one that was on my Controlling the Narrative channel. I uploaded it to my second channel, Full Spectrum Dominance, today. Typically that's what I'll do. I'll wait a day and upload it on the second channel as well. Just so it gets out there, because YouTube stifles and shadow bans my material because it's the truth. And they promote frauds, these auditors who are mostly all Freemasons, and who kiss the ass of the police, and who set up fake skits where they pretend to expose the police. But really they don't expose anything, because they don't talk about police involvement in drug trafficking. They don't talk about how almost all the male cops are Masons, and that the females are from families in the communitarian system. They don't talk about how the police set up skits like that. They don't talk about the police involvement in criminal false flag events to deceive and manipulate. So those people are phonies, and they openly show a lot of the Masonic symbolism, and they have networks of Masons set up for that whole auditor system. All of them acting the same way, saying the same things, speaking the same way in like 5 different countries. So it's a fake operation. It's a psychological operation. The reason they run this fake auditor operation, which is run by the intelligence agencies using Freemasons to pretend to oppose the police, who they're really friends with behind the scenes, is because they're going to use that operation. They're going to stage some sort of fake situation where an auditor does something really stupid and then use that as justification to enact new laws restricting filming these criminal psychopaths in public. That's what they're going to do. And so all of those people, those auditors who stage these fake interactions with the police, don't trust them. They're fake. Don't give them money. Most of them are Freemasons. The ones who aren't are still connected with the Canadian communitarian system and are from families within that system. And so they have to use those people to deceive and manipulate to try and justify enacting these laws, because they want to be able to determine who can film in public and who can't. And so anyway, we'll go on now. There we go.
And that location where you just saw the drug trafficking, crime-enabling psychopaths from the Ottawa Police setting up another fake call and street theater skit to correspond with my arrival is the exact same location where they set up that other street theater skit in January. Actually, it was on January 22nd, 2025, where they intentionally blocked off that road and the entire surrounding area, and they had a female officer cackling like a lunatic continually, just behaving like a nutcase, cackling and howling and just behaving like a child, while she pretended to be doing some sort of assistance for this blocking off of the road. And then another Ottawa cop waddled over like a penguin, and immediately I stood at a distance because I know the whole thing was directed toward me, and also the bell technician who was there openly said, "How long do we have to stand out here for plausible deniability?" And that can be heard in the video too, in the audio of that specific video. So obviously he directed that toward me because they wanted me to know that the whole thing was fake and was set up because I was arriving there. And in that video, you will continually hear the female officer cackling like a deranged lunatic. And then as I'm standing at a distance recording it, just to show how ridiculous this whole circus sideshow is, they were doing it to try and get some engagement, so I would get pissed off or get angry. Instead, I just stood on the sidelines, amused, watching this foolishness and watching these people who are paid to actually supposedly uphold our laws just conducting themselves like absolute buffoons and performing a ridiculous acting skit. The same way, I might add, they perform acting skits in false flags, which are designed to deceive the public into accepting the removal of basic human rights. And that is much more nefarious, what they do there. This type of street theater thing is relatively minor in comparison to that. But that was the exact same location. And it was also right next to the same location where they had police cars set up. The same day I uploaded a video, obviously retaliating and doing this childish thing where they send a message by retaliating this way. And another Ottawa police officer comes out of a building just shortly after I had arrived there with the cars set up, knowing where I was going to be getting off at the bus stop. And he also is looking directly at me and just cackling and just conducting himself like a childish buffoon. And this is the training that they receive with regards to people who they're targeting this way. They do this because they want to get some sort of an angry reaction or some sort of aggressive reaction from the subject of the harassment. Because when they do this, they usually have community-based agents filming the reaction of the subject so that they can take that, edit the video just to the part where the person, if they react angrily or in some aggressive way, to make them seem aggressive and angry toward the police. It's all done through deceit and inversion. And these people lie and deceive with regards to literally everything they do at their jobs. So I'm glad to get more footage of that today. And probably they'll give me a lot more in the future too, so I'll be glad to upload anything else that they give me in that regard. And then, of course, we mustn't forget that situation where another Ottawa police officer, pictured here, looked directly toward the assembly of media cameras that were right next to him during what all of these major media organizations in Canada told you was an active shooter situation at Parliament Hill. And I believe it was in 2014 during the so-called Parliament Hill attack. An Ottawa police officer who is there, as you can see, holding a gun up, is looking directly at the assembled media cameras, and he bursts out laughing. And you can see that very clearly there. Now, I can't upload this video to YouTube, for that specific video to YouTube, for obvious reasons. It'll get taken down because criminals like this are protected, and they don't want you to know the extent of the deceit and the manipulation that is going on. Now, I'm not going to tell you any opinions about that situation. I'll let you reach your own conclusions, okay? I'm not going to give any opinions. I think it's fairly obvious what's going on here. When, if it was an active shooter event, would you be looking over at the cameras, the media cameras that were all conveniently assembled there, and burst out laughing and start cackling? Now, one of two things would be the case here. Either the person who would do that is severely deranged and mentally ill and should not be in his position, or the situation was not what you were told. That's all I'll say, okay? Because they don't like people being able to talk openly and speak truthfully about these things. on these major platforms. So I'll let you reach your own conclusion on that. But you can find that video on some other platforms. And I think it's fairly obvious what's going on there. And I think it's fairly obvious the extreme criminality that is involved in this type of deception. And it's all done to justify enacting new measures to say, well, we need more safety from quote unquote terrorism. Okay? So that's the Ottawa Police involved in that as well. And yeah, that's the guy right there. You can see him laughing.
Gaza starving. Israel's blocking all third of aid from entering Gaza. Okay. Talk about that in a second. Yeah, I was talking about that yesterday and I accidentally erased it. So there's a lot of lying and deception going on with that, needless to say. A lot of the people who pretend to oppose these things are really just funded by the state and they're just actors. Like, let me ask you a question. Do you think with these Palestinian protesters they show in all these, in the auditor videos and in Rebel News videos, do you honestly think that someone who's legitimately protesting a cause, if they wanted to get their voice out there, they're not going to just walk up and start attacking random people for no reason? That wouldn't happen if they were real protesters. That happens when you send paid agent provocateurs and actors to discredit people. So the reality is, those people who you're seeing, definitely on Rebel News, where the Palestinian protesters just walk up to them and start shouting and acting aggressive, they're not real protesters. They're funded by the state to act crazy. Okay, that's what they do. They hire people to do things like that. And who benefits from that? Well, just think about it. Who benefits from that if you make the opposition seem crazy, violent, aggressive, etc.? So there's no way, if you are a real legitimate protester, grassroots, wanting to get your voice out there, that you just attack random people on the street who you don't even know, which they show in these auditor videos, which are completely staged, and it's obvious whose side they're on. You can tell who's funding them, right? So when you see that in those auditor videos, they're doing the same thing. They're having these paid actors posing as Palestinian protesters, approaching these auditors and being violent and aggressive. Why would they do that for no reason if they don't even know who the person is? Like, they just walk up to them without even knowing them and attacking them? They wouldn't do that if they were real protesters. That's all an act to discredit people who would speak out against certain things. And I don't have to tell you who benefits from that. So just think about it. What you see on Rebel News, it's all staged nonsense, meant to invert everything, invert the reality of what's really happening. But they mix in a little bit of truth here and there because they have to draw people in. But I mean, you can't seriously think. There's no way you can think that when Ezra Levant is saying things like Iran is controlling the Toronto police. That's utterly ridiculous. Some of the most laughable foolishness you could ever hear. It's obviously lies and inversion of what's really happening. And that was all fake, that arrest with him. They staged that. And who gets turned into the victim when you do that? Think about it. Who's really getting turned into the victim? It's inversion, okay? So those Palestinian protesters you see in most of the YouTube videos where they're acting crazy and throwing things at people, they're just paid actors. And those are not real grassroots protesters, okay? Real grassroots protesters who want to get their voice out there with regards to a cause like that don't behave that way. They're not going to attack random people for no reason. But that's what Rebel News and that auditor, Fraud North transparency, there's no transparency with him, because if he was being transparent, he'd admit to you that he's a Freemason with all these staged interactions he has with his Masonic brothers in the police. Also part of a psychological operation. Anyway, enough said about that now. You have to take everything from Rebel News with a grain of salt, okay? They're literally telling you that staged events are real, continually. They're inverting this situation with who's really in control of things. Now, I'm not offering an opinion on that, I'm just telling you the facts. It's obvious that's what they're doing. And you see David Menzies of Rebel News always wearing that purple tie to represent Freemasonry. And yeah, that's just what it is. And so they're close with these auditors who also stage fake interactions with the police because it's all interconnected with these organizations. And they all seem to have the exact same opinions, and all of these paid actor protesters, fake protesters, seem to just conveniently show up in the auditors' videos and attack them. Now, obviously they're told to do that, and it's just an act, okay? Very clearly. And with Rebel News, I mean, if you can't see that they're at least associated with the Israeli Mossad as a propaganda arm, you got to be pretty slow there too, okay? I mean, it's very, very obvious what's going on there, especially with this inversion, with these fake protests. Now, the protests are fake on both sides. They're controlling those protests completely, and most of them are not in any way grassroots activists. They're just actors, for the most part. You might get a few people who go down there thinking that it's real, and some of those people, if they want to get involved too politically active, if they become too politically active, they'll put them on a watch list. They want to control all these protests, and it's all just orchestrated to push the agendas that they want without making it seem like it's totalitarianism. So to some people, it is a little bit more complex than what you see on the surface, but once you start looking at patterns and looking into these things, you start to recognize what they're doing, because they use basically the same methods over and over again.
Starting back up, sir. He's got his kid on the back there, stalker. Of course, they always exploit their children in these activities too. They raise them to partake in these activities, so it's not surprising to see that. And they got here just, as you can see, just as I got to the, pretty much as I got to the bus stop, to stalkers. They're exploiting their own children. And there's the police here, is it? Or is this right? Yeah, police, what's this? Police there. Police there, doing their act with the lights on. Now they're going to take the lights off, maybe, as they go back. What do you even have the lights on? You're not dealing with anything at all. I mean, not that they really ever do anyway, right? But there they are there. So you got the bikers, stalkers there, showing up first with their kids on the bikes. And then you got the drug trafficking dudes there, and got nothing. Just an act, and like everything they do, pretty much. Except for selling drugs, trafficking drugs, that's not an act. But, I mean, in terms of things that they pretend to do, like dealing with crime and stuff like that, that's all just an act. They don't actually do that. And the guidelines of community policing would show you that anyway. Even if you read up on that, you'd understand that they've been transitioned into a system where the cops are just useful idiot enforcers of the elites. And that's all they are. They're the goons, the thugs, who enforce tyranny on behalf of the elites. And so, since community policing has been brought in, that's what they've been doing. So they don't want anyone in those positions who can really think about their actions, who would be willing to reassess the right and wrong with regards to doing things like that. They don't want anyone like that. They just want people who are mindless order takers. Preferably psychopaths who have no conscience and are willing to torment people and do whatever they're asked, and to deceive and lie and participate in staged events. That's the only type of person they're going to have in those positions now and moving forward. Now here's the thing, is some of those people who they have in those positions, with psychopaths, they can put on a front that they actually have empathy, that they're you know, that they can actually empathize with people and things like that. They can't. It's all an act. They're trained specifically in deceiving, lying, inversion, and gaslighting. And no one is going to get into those positions who does not accept doing that at this point. Now, it's debatable what they tell them up front when they first go in. There could be some rookies and people just starting out who don't fully know the extent of everything, but they're going to quickly find out. If you see the movie they put out a few years back called Training Day, that gives you the reality of the situation there. That's Masonry giving you the truth in that movie about the police and drug trafficking, and how the guy comes in on his first day and he's kind of naive. He doesn't know what really goes on. Of course, the Denzel Washington character is just a psychopath with no empathy, no conscience, just a criminal psychopath who traffics drugs, works with criminal gangs, enables crime. And that's pretty much what they do. And the other cops in the movie are the same too. So it's just the one guy who didn't know any of these things who gets in. Now, I don't really like movies like that anymore because of the profuse foul language and the normalization of extreme violence, but it is an interesting film to look at because you can see exactly what they do, and they're laying it out in that, there's no doubt. They will give you a lot of truth in these mind control movies that they put out about what they do. And then they'll lie to you on TV and the news about everything. But in some films, they'll lay out, you know, what they perceive to be the truth, and well, they'll lay out things like that. And you can really see in that movie, it's probably way worse than that. I mean, in real life, it's way worse than that movie, for sure. But that was somewhere in the United States. Here, it's worse. In terms of police corruption, it's way worse here. Communitarianism is in a more advanced state here than it is in the United States. It's in place in the United States and all around the world, but in some places it's in a bit of a more advanced state, and that's why you see them pushing the agendas to basically remove cash and push this digital ID system a little bit more aggressively here, and in the UK. There, it seems to be there, they'll just accept tyranny. I mean, they'll go out and stage fake protests to pretend to be against the lockdowns, but when real things are being done in their country and with Freemasonry being responsible for all these things, they won't go out and protest any of that. So that tells you that most of those protests they set up are just using actors. Unfortunately, very sad, but that's the case. And they control most of the people in these smart cities literally like slaves. They have to do what they're told. There's no questioning anything. You just go out and do this. If you don't, you'll be socially ostracized and possibly eventually targeted. And that's why this whole situation is being set up, where they're burning down the forests intentionally. No one with a functioning brain believes that the ground is just catching on fire. And they also don't believe these stupid stories the media's putting out that, you know, they caught someone, but that'll go towards pushing the direction, that will go towards guiding the narrative in some direction where they want it to go. Here are the facts. The military is involved in it. No question about it. These are the people who would have the resources to do that. The fire department is involved in it worldwide. They're not actually putting out these fires in a timely manner at all. And they know, obviously, that the fires are being set. As I said before, when I lived in Toronto, I witnessed situations where the Toronto firefighters were clearly involved in what was arson. No question. They knew it was going to take place, and in some cases they'd get there literally just after somebody set the fire, so you could tell they were already waiting, and they were having people set these fires. The firefighters knew it was going to be done. Okay, that's beyond criminal. And and again, most of the males in those positions in the fire department are all Freemasons as well. That's admitted. I spoke to a Toronto firefighter. He openly admits that in a video from 2021. You can see that video. So we again draw the connection between that and what they're doing there, and how they use these people to stalk and harass truth speakers, dissidents, whistleblowers, law-abiding citizens who don't go along with these agendas. They're fully involved in that. They're psychopaths. They have a groupthink mentality that's been instilled in them through the lodges. There's no individualism there. They even have to, do their hair up in the exact same ways, and it's just ridiculous. They're like slaves in many cases. Like, they'll all have their hair the same way. those man buns, those ridiculous man buns. And it's just a hive mind stuff here. So guaranteed. Just because I'm recording, he's not even getting the bus. He's just been sent over to stand here. He's not even there for the bus. You can see. But yeah. So anyway, that situation is another stalking fat biker there. Because most of them are members of lodges too, these bikers that they use. And tonight at work, they'll have a lot of them because it's Friday night. So they'll have the off-duty cops and firefighters driving back and forth continually, purposefully making excessive amounts of noise and disturbing most people who are trying to sleep in the area too. Just to harass me. And that's okay. We'll catch it all on camera and we'll put them out there. Some of them, obviously, you can't see their faces when they're doing that, conveniently. But, yeah, so anyway, those are the people who are taking part in that. And it's all transition to this Masonic slave system, where Masons will have a few more privileges than the basic slaves who they're creating, the proletariat. So that's why they're so eager to go along with these agendas, because they've already been rewarded with material benefits just for going along with it so far. And you know, even if you want to have a successful business, that's completely controlled by Masonry. And that's no exaggeration. In this country, all these people, these technicians, these plumbers, more bikers here. What was that, 6? Since I just got there. Another one headlight car here. Police encouraging people to endanger people's lives on the road at night by driving with one headlight. Again, if the other one should give out, that's a serious hazard. But they don't care. The most important thing is, it's more important that they sensitize someone who they're harassing than it is to keep people safe on the road. So, but yeah, all the people that they've inserted into these positions in Canada, anyone in any prominent position who has a voice, where you hear them on any of these social media sites, they're all completely controlled by Freemasonry. And that's no exaggeration. You're not going to get to talk or be promoted in any way if you're not a part of this slave system and you're not willing to lie and deceive and assume an identity to play a controlled opposition role, as many of them do. Yeah, so it's just a time of mass deception. We are living in a time of unprecedented deception, and that's what's going on right now. So we've had the police and like a bunch of bikers so far here in Hull, Quebec. And then had the police on, what was it? I think it was Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday night, so. Police again there. It's car number 75 driving up to harass and intimidate there. That's the bus stop where I'm going to. I'm going to cross over there. Because they sent that guy over there, that stalker. They're just going around to go back where they came. Same way. Bunch of fraudulent criminals. That's what they are. And that's in Gatineau, police there. But we're going to see in Toronto, in Ottawa tonight, the same thing. So, yeah, for whatever reason, sometimes they'll slow these things down for a couple days, and then Friday nights they always do a lot of stuff. So I expect some shenanigans tonight. They'll be using these biker gangs tonight. So I'm predicting that now. So I'm going to have recordings of it, which I will probably add to my next video. And that's them tonight. Yeah, they showed up, I think it was Wednesday, was it? I'm pretty sure it was Wednesday night. But 2 of them tonight, and then a bunch of biker gangs. And so just to reiterate this, these biker gangs have been sent to harass and stalk me everywhere I go for 4 years, and I have evidence of this for 4 years. You can see it in the videos, and they're in 2 different provinces. So last night, because it rained heavily, when I had the camera running last night, it's a little bit of a safety thing for them to be out, driving motorcycles back and forth when the road's wet, so they didn't send them out. And it was the only things that happened last night were some cars drove by my workplace, and I have footage of a number of these things where they will drive by and just blare the horn just as they go by. There's one guy who went by at like 2:30 in the morning, no one else on the road, and he just lays on the horn right when he gets to the front of my workplace. And where I'm working, I can see all this through the window. They know that, right? And you can hear all that because I'm working alone, and it's kind of just like a small, I'm not going to say what it is, but I can see everything on the street and I can hear things there. So that's why they have the noise harassment with those cars and the bikers. And it's also important to note that the only time I'm even crossing over into Ontario from Quebec is just to go to work. And it's literally just, to get there, it's just cross over and go to the place because it's so close to work. But because of the harassment and these stupid street theater skits they set up, sometimes I'll have to take an alternate route. Because they'll even have people who are there on that premises. As soon as I get there, going to where I'm going to enter and like walking up to where I'm going to enter and coming through, because they moved a bunch of people in there too to do these ridiculous slave assignments. So that's what I deal with regularly. And Ontario is the worst province in all of Canada to be in if you're dealing with one of these harassment cases. Not saying that, you know, Quebec is a lot better, but it is a little bit better, at least here. Montreal would probably be, yeah, they'd probably be just like Ottawa, Toronto, maybe worse, but I've never been there to Montreal. But I'm just saying, I'm not saying here it's like it's another bus. I'm not saying that it's you know, they're going to do these things here consistently as well. But Ontario, it's just because if you look at that reading material I was talking about before regarding community policing, it says in that book that Ontario was one of the first provinces to most eagerly embrace community policing, and it shows. It shows because those things are all in lockstep there. It's very precise, and the cops are all completely willing to do these things, and they've made sure they got everyone out of the police who would have any sort of conscience or object to harassing people in this way or participating in endless amounts of staged events. They got them out of there a long time ago. These systems that the Masons put their children into, such as the Demolay Society, named after Jacques Demolay, of course, of the Knights Templar, and who was executed, of course, on Friday the 13th. What was the year? 12? So, I don't know the exact year, but it was. That's why the date Friday the 13th. These people hold it to be bad luck and whatnot. It's because he was executed on that date for his disgraceful crimes, and just a disgraceful person too, Jacques Demolay. Not somebody to look up to, but they named these societies after because of course he was the Knights Templar were nothing more than a front group. They weren't really a Christian group. That's all nonsense. They were actually worshipping the Baphomet and having all these gay orgies and making sacrifices to Lucifer, and so that's what they were really about, and that's why Jacques Demolay was executed, because they didn't want that going on. He was executed, I believe, in France, and I think I'm sure the date was Friday. It was a Friday the 13th. I don't remember the exact year, but you can look that up. And so they hold him in high regard, of course, due to his deviousness and criminality. And so they have to have these. They have this organization that's for boys, younger boys or teenage boys, known as the Demolay Society, and it's just brainwashing for how Masons brainwash their children. If you didn't know this already, all communist ideologies were born out of people from Masonic lodges. Karl Marx was a Freemason. Vladimir Lenin was a high-level Freemason. That's on record. These are people who pushed communist tyranny, and now we see this system being promoted worldwide. So it's no coincidence that you got Masonic lodges again pulling the strings, or being used by people above anyway, for that matter, to orchestrate these activities. And that's why it's you can make a very clear argument how it's completely unacceptable to have anyone who is a member of an organization like that in a position that is supposed to serve the public, because it contradicts those oaths that they take in Masonry, contradict everything that you're supposed to do if you are actually going to be honorably serving the public as a whole, and not just serving Masons, people who you know to be Masons. But no, they'll cover up the crimes of their fellow Masons. No Mason is going to do any real prison time in Canada, especially if they're at a high level. They won't do any. They could kill someone, go out on the street and kill someone, and nothing would happen. The police would cover it up.
corrupt Masonic judges would cover it up. That's a fact, okay? It's an absolute fact. And so, since we have no freedom of the press here either, we just have actors who they put out to pretend that there's some freedom, like certain people. The press is completely controlled. They'll cover that up as well. So that's how it works. It's not under any circumstances a democracy, and that's provable, because in a democracy, you have, in any democracy, you have due process. You can't just slander a person and harass them for years and not allow them to contest that. That happens only in dictatorships and totalitarian regimes, and we see it happening actively here in this country. So this is not a democracy. Anyone who tells you it is just openly lying. There's another stalking biker up here now. That's, what is that, like 7 or 8? So